Welcome to the Waste Crime Innovation Programme's production on end-of-life vehicles, or ELVs. This guide will take you through the process of what should happen to an ELV when it's taken to an Authorised Treatment Facility, or ATF. An ATF is a permitted site and is the only site that can accept ELVs and treat them to remove the hazardous parts and liquids. Schedule 5 of the End-of-Life Vehicle Regulations 2003 sets the standards that ATFs have to meet regarding site infrastructure and depollution, removing hazardous parts and liquids. The Environment Agency is the government body responsible for compliance with the legislation. Other government bodies, the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency, DVLA, and the Department for Business Enterprise and Regulatory Reform, BER, are also involved. This film should be viewed along with the written guidance you've been supplied with. Our officers have also been provided with the guidance and a copy of this film. This film was shot at an ATF, and the depollution will generally arrive at the site containing all of their liquids, oil, antifreeze, screen wash, etc., and will usually still have an attached battery. These are known as undepolluted vehicles. Transfer notes or consignment notes may be required depending on the source of the vehicle. ELVs should be stored on an impermeable surface, and all drainage should be to a sealed tank or via an oil interceptor to the foul sewer or watercourse. If the discharge is to a foul sewer, a trade consent from the local water company will be required. If the discharge is to a watercourse, then permission must be sought from the Environment Agency. This site shows a good impermeable surface, and any leaks from the vehicles will be collected. The operator is also keeping spillage kits present in case of an emergency. Remember, a certificate of destruction must be issued for every vehicle that has been depolluted. This must be given to the last owner, and the DVLA must be notified. This is where the vehicle has the battery and other parts and liquids removed. This is known as depollution. Note that the floor of the bay is impermeable and no liquids are able to escape. Also note that this is a hazardous environment and extreme care must be taken when undertaking depollution. Seek advice from the Health and Safety Executive on this matter. The vehicle will initially have the battery removed and stored securely. Next, all liquids, including coolant, power steering fluid, screen wash, and an amount of engine and gearbox oil are removed. These must all be stored appropriately, something we'll look at later. Wheels and tyres are also removed, and then taken to have the rubber separated from the wheel, and the wheel balancing weights removed. Remember that this must also happen to the spare. The vehicle can now be raised to allow access to the underside. Here, the operator removes the plug in the oil sump, and the oil is allowed to flow under gravity to a collection vessel. The same procedure is used to remove the oil from the gearbox. The oil filter is now removed and crushed or placed in a leak-proof container. Note how much oil remains in a filter. Whilst the oil is draining, the brake nipples are removed and the brake fluid removed from the system via the 4 holes. Next, the catalytic converter is removed and again stored securely. Removal of the wheels has allowed access to the shock absorbers. These can be stored in appropriate storage. Fuel is also removed. This can be undertaken directly through the fuel pipe or by puncturing the tank. Note that there can be a ridge in the fuel tank, so care must be taken to ensure that all the fuel is removed. Again, the liquids are taken off for appropriate storage. Air conditioning refrigerants can also be removed. We see here the depollution equipment being attached. Finally, any airbags must be deployed. This is important, as if it's not done, problems can occur further on in the recycling process. Seatbelt tensioners must also be deployed. We've talked earlier about appropriate storage, but what do we mean? Liquids must be stored in separate leak-proof containers in a bunded area. The containers must be labelled to clearly identify their contents. It's possible to store different types of oil in the same container, provided it doesn't hamper its recycling. Batteries must be stored in separate, clearly labelled containers, which are acid-resistant, leak-proof and prevent rainwater entering if stored outside. Tyres must be stored separately, but in such a way as not to be a fire risk. Consider asking for advice from your local fire officer. Parts for reuse are usually stored on racks, but if this is not practical, for example an engine, then the item can be stored on an impermeable surface. Air conditioning refrigerants should be removed directly to a container, such as the one seen here. It's important to weigh these containers, as this is how you know how much gas is inside. The shell of the vehicle can now be stored on any hard standing, as the surface does not now have to be impermeable. Any vehicle stored on this hard standing must be fully depolluted. Environment Agency officers will inspect vehicles to ensure they are fully depolluted. Once the ELV has been fully depolluted, it can be placed in the baler or the shells removed from site. Here we see the depolluted vehicles being placed in the baler and then placed into storage. We've now been through the depolluting process, and hopefully you now have an understanding of what the Environment Officer will expect to see. If you need further help, use the electronic guide accompanying this production. This guide not only provides details of the depollution process, but also provides links to further related topics, such as duty of care and export of waste. Thank you for watching.